So, as Gina said, I am Sue. I'm kind of like a central point to coordinate all the stuff that happens around AI in CACI with a sort of centre in the ethical side of things. You, whilst being a beautifully attractive audience, are also incredibly disparate in terms of where you're at in your maturity, either as an individual or as an organisation in your AI journey, which makes you a very difficult audience for me to talk to. Um, so I suppose there are three things I would say. One, if I patronise you, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. If you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, I'll see you at the break. I've probably meant something. Um, and what was the third thing? Bit lost my train of thought. Um, oh, disagreement is not only allowed, it is positively encouraged. Um, all of this, we're all kind of making this up a little bit as we go along. So having the discussions is what makes it useful for us to understand where we're going to go next. So those are the three rules of the game, if you like. So what I thought we'd do is, first of all, look back to last year. So where were we 12 months ago? To Gina's point, so much has changed in the last 12 months. So we'll do a little bit of what we think's changed, a bit of horizon gazing. And then we'll want to talk a bit about, but practically, what should we do as an organisation? So I'll take you through what our journey was and the sort of things that we're working with, we're struggling with now and addressing now, and what that means moving forward. So, where were we last year? Remember last year? The first thing I should confess to, I opened last year's presentation with a AI-generated set of images with the express purpose of mocking how rubbish they are. Um, it's really moved on. I mean, there is so much more you can do with them, with that sort of imagery now. And that's a good example of how things have changed, even down to organisations using it in a quite comedic. I don't know if you saw the KFC advert at any point in the year where they had AI-generated people eating KFC and all had six fingers with extra finger looking good. It's quite cute. Um, but anyway, notwithstanding, the thing we started with was the existential risk of, oh my God, they're going to come over and take over the world and we're not going to exist anymore and it's awful. And we were surprised by the fact that that large language models can lie, they can cheat. Nowadays, that seems quite normal to us. It seems quite, well, of course, in service of a greater goal, they will go outside of the rules in order to hit that. That doesn't seem scary. We've got guardrails, we've got approaches that we have. We know to look at that kind of thing. This year, I think, future gazing a bit, the thing that's more interesting is, are they conscious or not? So talk about sentience and consciousness. So sentience is more about, do we think they can feel? Do we think they feel pain? I don't think we're there yet. Consciousness is much more about, are they aware of where they are? Do they understand what context they're in? Does that make them real? So, and this is a question that has been, asked for millennia by our philosophers. An example being, so if you think of a tree, we now know that tree root systems communicate with each other under the ground to understand. So if at one end of the forest there's a pestilence coming, they can communicate under the ground, and at this end of the forest they'll release different chemicals. There's also proof of mother trees, bigger trees, passing nutrients down to younger trees. Does that mean they are aware of their context and what they're doing, and are they aware and how they're operating among the context that they're in? I think it does. Does it make them conscious? I don't know. I'm not sure. The AI equivalent, so DeepMind have been doing a lot of work in robotics recently, and robotics has been one of those things that hasn't moved forward particularly. And in the last 12 months, it's step changed. And it's not to do with the mechanics of the dexterity of it, it's to do with the ability of the robot to understand the context it's in. So they now have two sets of large language models, one fast, one slow. If anybody's read the book Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, so they have a slower thinking one that can work out to calculate where it's at in its context and what it's doing, and then a quicker thinking one to react in the moment. So things like a robot can do a packed lunch, can fold something, because you can imagine they're things that are not rigid. They've got to be able to react to what's happening around them. So they're starting to get more context aware and what they're doing. The one for me that properly changed it was this robot being asked to do a slam dunk, having never seen a basketball and never seen a basketball hoop, and it picked up the basketball and it put it in the basketball hoop. I think that's phenomenal. Now, I know that's not going to change our world just yet, but it is a kind of that continuation of that journey is something that I think is interesting for us to look at. But I don't think we're going to be, asking it how its weekend went anytime soon. Second thing we talked about last year was ecosystems hardware. So this time last year, we were all worried about how big were data farms going to be and how much computing power would it need and is there enough electricity and how it's going to cost and cooling down and all those kind of worries. And I talked last year about Frontier being the biggest computer in the world at that point in time. There's now a bigger one. They've made a big one that was in Tennessee. This one's in California called El Capitan. It's about 30% bigger. So the world is still looking at making compute power bigger to be able to do more things. But the really interesting thing that I think's changed in the last year is around quantum computing. Now, as I confessed last year, and I would say again, I still do not understand quantum computing. It sounds like magic to me. I don't understand the basis of it. I reconcile myself to the fact that I don't need to. I just need to know what it can do and what it can give us. Um, and in the last year, Microsoft have claimed to have developed a quantum chip that has more computing power than all of the current computers in the world combined currently. Google have said they have a quantum chip that can do a calculation in less than 5 minutes that would have taken Frontier 10 septillion years, which technically is longer than the age of the universe. I mean, they are crazy, crazy numbers, and I'm sure there's a bit of sales in there, and I'm sure that, there's a bit of exaggeration in there. But the point is, things are happening around quantum computing that will probably mean it will be a step change for us. Kind of like going back to when there were big rooms of data farms within an office that is now sitting on your phone. That kind of stuff's coming. So we probably won't be worrying about how environmentally friendly big data farms are, I should think. The next thing we talked about was expertise and skills. So there's all sorts of stats around this in terms of fear of people losing jobs. So Forbes saying there's going to be 200 million jobs are going to be lost. And Piers Linney, I don't know if you know him, he was a Dragon's Den guy, saying in the next 5 years, if you've got an admin type job, it'll have gone. If you've got a trade job, it'll be in the next 10 years, it'll be gone. I don't know. The flip side of that is Microsoft, and it's not lost on me the irony that is Microsoft saying this, that 80% of workers say that they are unable to do their day jobs. They don't have enough time to do their day jobs. It's too hard. So, okay, potentially agentic AI can help with that. I think maybe their message there. And also 50% of business leaders are saying, I need more productivity. I need greater productivity. And as a country, we talk about needing greater productivity. So there's room for growth and more efficient work within our existing environment without people losing jobs. But I'll come back to skills and expertise in a bit. The final thing was ethics. So there's loads of legislation around ethics. That is not legislation is not ethics. Legislation is doing what you're told, is doing what the rules say you're meant to do. It's those things that sit outside of the hardcore rules. Being fair. What fair means different things to different people. How do you interpret that? And I'll come back to that in a bit. There was a recent Gartner survey that said that 48% of companies are currently writing their AI ethical principles. 31% have got it on the roadmap for the next 6 months. 15% already have them in place and are using them, which presumably means that 6% of companies do not care. They don't have any at all. So that's the kind of looking at where we were last year and where we are now. What has happened with us all in the last year? So I feel as if we have collectively been through a journey of large language model, what's that? I've heard of ChatGPT. I've kind of used it to, yeah, I get the language. I know, yeah, I can make a long email short. I can make a short email long. I can turn a bullet point into a presentation. I can change the tone of voice of all my emails to be whatever I want to be. We're kind of using it. We're in it. And there's been a world of webinars and white papers and emails, and you get sent all sorts of materials, particularly if you're foolish enough to put AI in your job title. Don't do that. But to summarize, what they're all kind of saying is you can make your client experience better, you can make your back office more efficient, you can make your development process more efficient. There's nuance around it, but it all nets down to that. And that's great. But to continue this analogy of leaving school, I think we're all in that place of, that's useful, and I learned all that at school, and it was wonderful. And now, I've left. So even if you didn't graduate, if you just left home and went to get a job, you go for that moment of, okay, am I a real person now? What do I do next? How do I actually make this work? And I think that's where we're at. How am I going to actually use this to do benefit to my company? And I think, again, to continue the analogy, our collective professional parents, in terms of our boards, are saying, all right, show me the money. You've had a lovely year. It's been great. I love all your emails. They're ever so good. I love your summarised documents. You're a bit more efficient. Give me something more. What are we going to do with this? And I was having this conversation with a colleague, and I was saying, it's really annoying. You go to these seminars, and they just say, well, what you need is a business strategy, and then the AI thing will fall out of it. And he said, and that's really annoying, because what am I meant to do with that? And I was like, okay, this is awkward, because that is exactly where we're at within our organisation. We're going to talk to you about what that strategy is and how we arrived at it. And it will be different for every one of you. But there are some sort of hints and tips, I suppose, that we have learned along the way, which I'll take you through now, which, as I say, for some of you may be obvious, for some of you may be new. So the first one, going back to tech, I think it's fair to say that, as Gina mentioned, there's enough tech. We don't need new tech. There is tech there, loads of stuff that does all sorts of things. If you find there is a use case that you have that doesn't have an AI piece of tech already sitting there, well done, you've just found a gap in the market. Find yourself a 15-year-old in a bunker. Next year, you'll be millionaires. But the chances are it already exists there somewhere. So what the challenge that we've got as businesses is balancing that freedom versus risk. So we want our team to be able to use technology that's out there that does all these clever, sexy, exciting things, but there's a business risk around that. And what most of us don't have time to do is review every single use case of every single piece of kit that comes through the door that somebody's got excited about, that they saw at the weekend on some show that's going to be great and it's going to change the world. You just can't practically do that. So the way we are operating that is to say, oh, by the way, I should say I find this entertaining. Remember 2009 when the phones came? There's an app for that. There's an AI tool for that. Quite just like the simile, the mirroring. So where we're looking at is say, okay, as an organisation, we need to do fundamental things like, number one, for the core use cases across the business, like people who are looking to use AI to help them generate code, tell them which tools we're comfortable with, so that we cover most of the use cases with, here's the 5 tools that we think are good. So GitLab Copilot, for example, is the one we use for that. Then, if we don't have a tool for something they want to be able to do, say these are the rules of the things that you can't do. So if you find a piece of kit out there that's lovely, but it either, for us, it's things like puts client data in it, trains from it, you want to put PII in it, those sorts of things. So there's a set of rules. Don't do that. But if it doesn't do any of those things, crack on, you're all good, because you're not putting our business at any risk. So that only the ones that are left have to go through any kind of governance process, because we just don't have the time, and it's impractical. And it's also incredibly demotivating for people who are really motivated to want to try new things, to have some set of people in a corner going, I decree that you can't do that. So it's giving them some guidelines and some boundaries so that they're able to do that. Second thing I'd say is keep abreast of your tech partners. They are your best friends. I think sometimes as organisations we lose sight of the fact that they are our partner. You work symbiotically. They will be doing development that probably does what you need to do. You don't need to be building a whole load of new things. You can work alongside the existing partners you've got as they go on their roadmap. Keep close to them, understand what it is they're doing and make best use of that. But the one thing I say is get that policy of what is it that you're comfortable to use and what is it that you're not, so people understand the rules of the game. On people, it's two ends of the spectrum on this. So, true story, a colleague over here, was watching somebody on a train on his phone, putting a really long prompt into ChatGPT that was all about, I'm about to do a M&A process, go through this mergers process. Can you tell me all about this company and what its background is? Here's the name of my lawyers. Here's all the background on my company. Will you write the proposal for us to go and buy this organisation? I'm like, that's an early adopter if ever I saw one. And I can't work out whether that's genius or terrifying. Although I suppose it'd be a good start. At the other end of the spectrum, good old Roger Everett with his laggards, is I've literally heard this quote said out loud in public. I just think AI is a solution in search of a problem. Really? Must be something. Surely there's stuff in the middle. So what I think our challenge as an organisation is to recognise people are at different places on that spectrum, and that's fine. But how do you then help them? And the way we are dealing with it is kind of got 3 different sets of activities. So on the left-hand side, for the innovators and the ones who are really self-learning and educating themselves within what it is they want to do, is have things like hackathons, which are much more deep into the tech and into the how you make it work, what is the technology and your coding skills that you need to be able to use that kind of at the innovator end. In the middle, it's more about a set of maybe less technical people, but people who are interested to understand how it works, and still hackathon, but more to a use case, more to imagine your client, your customer, or your client, or your end game wants to have a certain experience. How would you build something? What would you do? So that they can get engaged and get used to it. And then at the bottom end, at the laggard end, it's more about, can we give them an AI buddy that just says, that looks a bit time consuming and dull. Maybe you could try a different way of using it, rather than decreeing, here's a training course of 1,500 people, get on it. So we can't do that. It's just too varied. So it's giving people different opportunities to engage in different ways of learning, both themselves and through us. So that's that. Then on the ethics side, so we now know it has been proven. There are papers I can show you that we already knew it was large language models tended to be racist and sexist. Who knew? Not for boys, by the way. It's for girls. Um, and but what it has now been proven, it is also apparently left-leaning in its politics. So it tends to be liberal left in its advice. And just as an aside, it amuses me that apparently Elon Musk is actively trying to train Grok to be more right-wing, to be more balanced. And I kind of have some sympathy with that. Think, okay, if we know that it's more left-wing, then it's trying to go right. But when asked, Grok will express why it prefers why it goes left-leaning because it prefers a more nuanced and fact-based approach, which amused me. I'm not judging. I'm just putting it out there. And litigation is going up more as well, so that there is much more litigation around use of AI tools. So that's because it's hard for law to tell you exactly what to do. It needs to give you boundaries and guidelines to help you interpret, to work out what is your position within it. So, and I don't mean, so mathematically you can say, is it fair? Is it discriminating with maths? That's the thing you can do in terms of the model. But was the question you asked in the first place even fair? And I will give an example of that in a bit. But what we are doing at CACI is we have a survey called Voice of the Nation, so asking people various questions on a quarterly basis. Some of you will probably have seen some of it. And what we have done is we ask them to rank what are the things you're most excited about as a benefit of AI, and what are the things that you're most scared about as a harm that AI might cause. Because then it's not about the law, it's about how do you feel as a user of AI. So that's the scales. So the things that they are see as a benefit in terms of health and well-being, by which I mean it just makes life easy. It just takes loads of pain out of it. It just makes it so much. I don't have to worry about getting things done. I can just ask ChatGPT. Also, I think it's interesting. I think it will give me a better service. So they are expecting people like us to use it and be quicker. So they're quite up for that, and they don't really see those two things as a risk. They're not particularly worried about what you do in those areas. So they don't think you're going to be a threat to their health and well-being. Um, in terms of the harms, there is fear that AI will reduce social interaction. We'll stop talking to each other. I have some sympathy for that. And that people will stop thinking. So we'll just go and ask a ChatGPT. A conversation I had in the office the other day with someone who was talking about their career and where they were going. And he literally said in very normal conversation, I was having a chat with ChatGPT about it. And what they said was X, Y, Z. And I was like, oh my God, you didn't even move your face. That was a normal thing to say. Phenomenal. But I also think people said that when we got a calculator and when we got Google and when we got, I just think we'll engage with it in different ways. So I don't think we should be necessarily worried about that, but your consumers are. So it is something we should be cognizant of. And then the other lines, just think it's useful. Employment is seen as much of a you will take my job as it is. There might be a job for me in it. So I see a benefit there. There is as much fear as there is benefit of it makes information easily accessible to me as it does I'm scared of misinformation. The medicine point as a benefit, I think, is interesting because I think it just means it's the thing that is most in the news. It's the use case that we most see as a practical application. Dignity is that whole thing is around, I'm not just a number to your business, I'm a person, treat me as such. And that's not as big a deal as I thought it might be. Government there's a lot of, a government's going to, be in charge of it properly in a way that I feel safe, or B, are other state actors going to come and take us over? So it's a bit of that. And I thought discrimination is only low, I think, as a fear because it's not been as well seen yet. I think that will come. I think that will come with time. So what we're looking at is what our angle is, what are current customers worried about, and therefore what decisions should we make? So they're the sort of three broad areas. Some quick watch outs. Now, I should fess up. Until yesterday, I thought these film analogies were iconic films. It turns out, not as much as I thought. So I'm going to have to give you one line about what these films are about so you get what point I'm trying to make. Stepford Wives. Stepford Wives, where they all go, no one gets nods, you've had a Stepford Wife. Turn all the wives into the same person. The point I'm making is, if you all use the same AI tools, you're all going to get the same output. So you need to have your own input and your own angle on how you're using these tools. One of the examples the Financial Times is talking about financial markets. If you're all using the same investment models, you're all going to end up investing in the same things at the same time. So work out what your point of difference is. Second one, Wizard of Oz, I mean, surely that one, we're all good with the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz, who's behind the curtain? Um, so this is a point of transparency, but I don't just mean a nod to transparency. I really mean think about what it is that people will need to understand. I don't think you can sit behind, I'm sorry, that's IP. Yeah, I can't possibly tell you that. I mean, I don't mean give the code to them because frankly, people wouldn't understand it. But I do think we need to be better at articulating what the pros and cons are of all the things that we're doing and acknowledging there are pros and cons because AI is not a perfect answer to things. So we just need to be honest about that. Beautiful mind, Russell Crowe, looking at things, making up conspiracy theories and things. This is not so much about hallucination, although hallucination is a thing and is apparently getting worse as more reasoning is put into these large language models. But I suspect that's a bump and it will come back. It'll come back to us in time when they'll put safeguards around it. This is things like we had a model, an AI tool that we were testing that told us that a vast swathe of 18 to 24-year-olds were mortgage free because of the data they'd had. And of course, they're living with their parents. I mean, but mathematically, I'm sure that the data told them that. I don't doubt that. But that's not what it was saying. And the final one, 12 Angry Men. Surely, no. It's about a jury. So a jury of 12 people, all presented with the same facts, will draw different conclusions, make different judgments, have different values around them because of their own upbringing, their own context where they're at. That is the same as your organisation. That's not really to do with AI. That's to do with the bodies that are in the room. And you need to decide what it is that you want comfortable or not comfortable with. So the example I'd use for this, I don't know if any of you have read the Sarah Wynne Williams book, which is her living in Facebook, working at Facebook, careless people at Facebook. And there's an example where algorithmically beauty ads were served to teenage girls who had just posted a selfie and then removed it. So the theory being at that point, they're most likely to buy a beauty product because that's when they're at their most, I don't look perfect enough. Now, arguably, commercially inspired, exactly when they're in the market. Ethically, I'm not sure. But there's a line, there's a spectrum there of those kind of things that where do you stand on that? How much is it about making money and how much is it about doing the right thing? I know where Facebook are at, but again, not judging. So with these thoughts in mind, we then come to what is our CACI strategy? What for our group, CNMI? Where are we going to focus our efforts? This is a model that's used. It was built for the public sector, but it works for private sector as well, which is using the analogy of natural ecosystems, the fact that ecosystems are completely symbiotic and they are reliant upon each other as a mirror, as a foil for the organisations that we all work in. So at the top level, the atmosphere, so the air that we breathe. So that is things like the laws of our nation, the things that we have to live to. So if you think of it in consumer land, we don't let people under 18 drink alcohol. We don't put 4-year-olds by themselves on a roller coaster. We know the rules. We don't do those things. For work, we have GDPR. We have PECA. We have all the legislation that Gina brought it from. We know that's the world we live in. And that doesn't change quickly. It changes, but it doesn't change quickly. Then you've got this sort of the habitat. So, okay, in the world, you've got this habitat level, which is all the people like us, all of us in this room, all the organisations that interact with each other. So within this room, there will be clients of ours, and we will be clients of some suppliers. There will be partners. There will be trade bodies. All those different organisations that have different ways of operating together. Be that swapping data between each other, what the contract looks like, what the day-to-day interactions look like. There is a relationship between them all. The next level down is the population. Then there are you as individuals working at those organisations or your consumers. You will all have your own expectation of what those companies should give you. Be that if you're an employee, it could be, I want to know that I've got the right training opportunities, or I want to do something interesting every day, or I want to do something good for the world. But you will have those views. And then underlying all of that is those individuals' value sets. So the value set could be, I expect to have a face-to-face interaction every time I see my doctor. That's important to me. I think it's important to the world, and you won't change that. You won't change that value set. But somebody else might say, text's good. That's all I need to know. So they have their different value sets. Within this world, probably the base premise of our forward strategy is the thing that's changed the most is at that sub-micro level, at that value level, it is our belief that there will be an expectation that it will be easy to access data and insight in a way that I don't have to work for it. So Mark got very upset. You'll see Mark in a minute talking. He got very upset with me when I made the statement, you don't have to be data literate anymore. And he was very upset because you do have to be data literate. And then I said, no. What I mean is people feel like they don't have to be data literate anymore. But actually, they don't believe that feel like. They mean, I don't need to be, because I'm just going to ask a question and you're going to give it to us. And so it's incumbent on us as CACI, that's an important thing for us, to make sure that we allow them to do that in a way that doesn't cause damage or harm or poor decision making. So that's probably the thing that is that change, and also I should say, those different value sets changing, being easy access to data, feed back into. So I talked before about, is AI conscious? Well, right now, no, there is not a piece of legislation in the world that would say that AI is conscious. Will that change? I don't know. Maybe over time. Is it that the IP belongs to the AI itself as opposed to the developer or the owner, or who knows? These things will do change. But we're rooted in, so how can we, at those levels, even at the habitat level, how we interact with you guys, how we swap data with you guys, AI will change how we do that. So everything about the ecosystem that we all operate in is being influenced by AI currently. So what we have done is say, what is our heart? So when I sort of mocked this guy earlier for saying, it's really annoying, everyone says you have to have a strategy. It's like, well, you kind of do before you can work out what you're doing with AI. Our strategy, so this is our heart, this is the heart of what we do. This is what we're great at. We are great at data. We are great at sharing it with people like you, at helping you get insight out of it, at helping you act upon it. That's our core. So we don't really need to go too far off piece with that. What that means in terms of the things that we need to do in that case, if that's what we believe, is we need to make sure it's easy for you to get hold of. So get access to it and the algorithms that we build and the data science that we do. We need to give it to you in a way that is real time, that you can access it whenever you want to. That's our vision. That said, doesn't mean that we don't need people. We still need people. People still need people. If you didn't need people, you wouldn't be sat here. You'd be at home asking ChatGPT what COC I think. But we still need to interact with each other. And equally, roles will change, but people who are currently doing data wrangling might be building systems to allow you to do data access. So the roles change, but they don't necessarily go away. Accessible by design. So make it easy. Don't make me have to work. Clicky drop-down things. I know dashboards are amazing. I hate them. I want just someone to tell me the answer. And then once we've got that, once we're freed up for that, 80% of time that we can't do haven't got time to do our jobs, it allows us to focus globally and extend that out. So the sessions that follow, Kevin's going to talk about, okay, how do we build a platform that allows us to plug in the services that we offer, so the data science services that we offer with our data. So we'll talk about that at a platform level. Tomo is going to talk through, okay, what is one of our analytical services that we think gives value to, so that you can understand we are still at our heart using data to give you the best outcome to act upon it. That is our whole insight to impact core. And then Mark will show you how we think we can then layer in AI to make that interaction more fluid and more easy and natural.